We would like to welcome you to the November 13th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. And if everyone would please stand, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing on our agenda tonight is a presentation by Jack Dearborn, who is the chairman of the CIP program. That's Capital Improvement Program.
Good evening. Again, my name is Jack Dearborn, chairman of the Weare Capital Improvement. On page 2, you'll find the members of the CIP for this year. It's myself, Sir Richmond, Steve Roberts, Gary Shelto, he's present this evening, and Sherry Burdick, James Snyder, present, and Bruce Fillmore is the planning board member. Did everybody get this chart?
The new one?
Mm-hmm. This one? Just me? They got this one? Okay. There's a correction. Actually, there was an omission, and we added a note. Just happens to be page 3. Page 3 and 4 is sort of like the eye test, if you will. It has all the assets that we have, large capital assets for the town, excluding the roads. And I'd just like to point out that there is a change. Actually, it's an addition. We missed the 1.5 million on bridge. It's yours? Yeah, you got it yellow. The 1.5 million on the yellow on 2020. That was missed, which should have been there. And the yellow pertains with the represents total project cost. We're expecting 1.5 million in 2020 for replacing the River Road Bridge. If we put $105,000 for 4 years, that's $420,000. That's our 20% of these 3 projects. The 1.5 million, the 300,000, the 300,000. So just want to make that clear. So, albeit this being an eye test, I have each item here for 2020. And oh, by the way, by the RSA requirements that governs the CIP, they would like a minimum of 6 years out, trying to understand what the bow wave of capital items look like. So, from a bird's eye view, that's what it looks like. We have various classifications that we use. Typically, within the current year, we have urgent and we have necessary, all required in a given year, 2018. The rest of these would normally, if they did come up in a given year, they would be spread out for a future year. Department heads have done a very good job of basically identifying those immediate needs and also looking at the ones for the next 5 years on top of that. So I'd like to go through page 6 if I could. And these 2 pages, 6 and 7, are a summary of what we are proposing this year for the CIP request. These are all put together by the department heads. And they came to, the CIP had a series of 5 or 6 meetings we had. And even after we got the initial input from the department heads, we worked quite a bit with them beyond the actual meetings to get this package together. And I want to thank them for their hard work and effort to get this together. Public Works Highway has 4 requests this year. Police have 1, which is really 2 cars. Parks and Recs has 1, which is for 2 sort of like shelters for Bolton Field. Library has a request for $25,000, first of 4 years for putting together a planning and engineering for the future of the library. And also the Select Board has 2 items this year. So let's just start off by page 8. What Benji'd like to do is, he has an aging fleet. If I can have you pop forwards to page 12 just for a second. This is a list of all the, quote, vehicles that go over the road for the most part. With the exception of T11 and T12, T1 through 13, there's 11 vehicles. The primary purpose of those is to do the winter plowing and sanding, and also for the summer roads, hauling material for road reconstruction. If you kind of look to the right under hours, you'll see that T3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, on the average, have over 10,000 hours. Now, Benji believes when you start getting up around 10,000 hours, irrespective of the mileage, irrespective of the years, it gets to be an issue of becoming less reliable. I did call up the State of New Hampshire Department of Transportation and pretty much asked the guy bluntly. I says, look, we run a small town. I says, we'd like to understand what the state does for their replacement, the metrics for replacement of larger trucks. And he says they're on a 12,000 hour basis, irrespective of the years. But they happen to have, for the 6-wheelers, 180,000, and for the 10-wheelers, 200,000 miles, on top of the 12,000 hours. The reason that it's not appropriate, and I had a discussion with him, is that most of their plowing and driving is at 40, 35, 40, 50 miles an hour. Town of Weare's trucks tend to be first, second, or third gear at most, plowing around various dirt roads and various town roads around subdivision. So the mileage is less of a concern for the town of Weare as the hours. Now, what Benji's requesting is this year, T6, 6-wheel truck, to replace it. It's got 10,646 hours on it. We had one in 2015 that the town granted, in 2017. We still have 9 large trucks, of which 6 have over 10,000 hours. So even if we replace one this year, and if you look at the length of time it's going to get to the last truck, that truck could have as many as 15,000 hours on it. We have a bit of a problem where the town bought trucks in 2000, one in 2002, 3, 2 in 2004, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We bought no trucks in 09 through 14. So we have a big bow wave of trucks coming due because of when they were purchased. So we're facing into an aging fleet, and that's an issue of not just asking for one, but it's going to be an issue of asking for them in the next 4, 5, or 6 years to get the fleet up to date. And the reason that's important isn't so much that they got 10,000 hours, it's that they're approaching an unreliable state. 2 things happen. Everybody that works with Benji, when it snows, whether the mechanic or the assistant mechanic, are driving a vehicle. So if something breaks down seriously, 2 people have to get out of the trucks, fix the one truck that's broken. There's 2 trucks impacted. Then the next question becomes, what's the impact of the service? Benji strives to have a revisit time of every 3 hours. What that means is, if you live on a road, it's snowing hard, you could expect to see the truck go by every 3 hours. People have a high expectation these days in terms of the service of the roads. They need to be passable. Back when I was a kid, 50, 60 years ago, it was not quite 70, but it didn't really matter so much. Today it's a big deal. Two parents in the household work. Kids have to go somewhere. They have a high expectation. So even though we're requesting one this year, we're going to have to be aggressive in purchasing them in the future as well. Because if we waited every other year to do that, we'd have almost 20,000 hours in the last truck before we were able to trade it. So any questions on that? That's one of Benji's. He wants to go from a 6-wheel, which the size of the body for the sander and for hauling material during the summertime. There's issues with a 6-wheel truck. You can overload it, even if you don't overload it, there's enough wear and tear on a single axle. You get breakage of wheels, breakage of springs. And he's had good luck when he bought a 10-wheeler that had a 12-yard body on it. It's almost impossible to overload that, which means there's less to have breakdowns. So he's requesting going to I think it's about a $15,000 more over the cost of a 6-wheel, going for a 10. Any questions on that? If not, I'll move to the question of the backhoe. Yes, this gets to be a little complicated, but last year he requested a backhoe as well as the truck. And it kind of came down to, he got the truck. Not having a backhoe that he can use for summer roads kind of has a major impact, where he had to go out and took some of the road reconstruction money, some $30,000, and rented $20,000, and rented it for 6 months. He rented a vehicle, which you can see is on page 10, which is a John Deere. It is the vehicle he would have bought. He rented it for 6 months for $20,000. And it's basically, if you figure a backhoe would last 13, 15 years, the cost per year of a $127,000 vehicle is around a little under $10,000. So for 12 months for owning it, for little under $10,000, we have to pay for 6 months $20,000, 4 times, even a little more than 4 times the rate of ownership for the 6 months. So Benji talked with the, rather than send it back and not have it available in the fall, where a lot of issues in terms of culverts and everything else, and leaves plug up. He negotiated with, I guess it would be considered a non-binding rental. That's the proper way to say it, because we can't bind a rental beyond 12 months. So the total cost of rental for 10 months would be $32,448. They will give us credit of 80% of that money and apply it to the $127,768 for a total of purchase price in March for us, if we wish to purchase that unit that we use for a year, $95,320. So we can buy that. We can buy the 1 year used vehicle that we put all the hours on. Like Benji likes to say, the bucket didn't even have a scrape on it. So before we got it, it was brand new condition, and we can buy that unit for $95,320. It's pretty straightforward. Part of the problem was, by not having a usable backhoe, the one he does have is basically good for crushing tin cans and packing down the dumpsters over at the transfer station. So to that point, we're also recommending that there is some $35,000, I believe, in the, let me just check that, $35,000 in a capital reserve from the equipment fund that could be applied for a total impacted taxes of $60,320. So that's what Benji's recommending. Any questions on that one? None. Moving on to the next issue of road reconstruction.
Do you have a question, Ken?
Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to figure this out here. Because I thought the way that this was explained before was the 12-month rental, the asterisk is there because it's only 80% that's being applied.
That number's wrong.
What's
Which
that?
number?
That number, we figured it out, because I asked the same question, sitting over here.
Yeah.
And the
what's wrong?
the 32,448 is the 80% of 40, what was it,
That's
40,000 and change?
Which is the
Yeah.
full 12 months.
Right,
Okay, sorry.
right,
No.
Did I misspeak?
right.
Yeah, you said
The
10.
95,320 is the correct number
Okay.
at the end of the day.
All right,
So,
stand corrected, thank you. Road reconstruction? By the way, I just want to say, some of that money was spent out of $480,000 to pay for the rental of that backhoe, which if you kind of look at that, you'll say, well, it's $20,000. Well, we'll get into this. These are some metrics that are worth knowing. If we would do shim and overlay on a road, which means you attempt to put an inch of asphalt on top of a road that's good enough condition to allow you to put it on there and not waste it. That's $70,000 a mile, and that's without the other incidentals like the tack that actually holds it down to the old surface. So that $20,000 is sort of like 20 over 20,000, 27 over 70. So we have a ratio of approximately just a little under a third of a mile that cost us not getting surface improvement on somebody's road from the standpoint, just from an idea of what $20,000 buys you. So Benji's going and requesting 480 again this year, and again he will select a road that's a candidate, or roads sections of roughly around 1.1 miles. It takes roughly $275,000 to tear up a road completely down to the base, bring in the appropriate crush and bank on them, replace the culverts, and then put the 2 inch of, I guess what's called 3/4 binder base coat, and then the following year put a 1 inch on it. So even though we're asking this year for 480, 1 inch is going on 1.1 mile up on Mountain Road. Because that only has 2 inches to let it settle over the winter. If there's any defects that come up, they can fix them. Then when it all settles out in the summertime, they come in and put 1 inch on top of that to finish the road off at 3 inches. So what Benji's asking for, and I just want to note that of the $400,000 that we request, $287,000 roughly is going to be received from the state. Is that correct? Right, state aid. So we're really only asking for $200,000 roughly, $202,000 to be raised by taxes. One thing I will make a point is that even though $480,000 is a lot of money, for the 66 miles of town road that is asphalted, if you think about it, we do 1.1 mile per year of basically completely redoing the road. We're never going to keep up with the destruction. We're just barely keeping up to it. So if you think you can do 1.1 mile a year, roughly 300,000 for the road reconstruction, and then maybe the other 100,000 can be done for 1.5 miles of shim and overlay. I wouldn't even say we're keeping even. We're falling behind slower than if we did nothing. So it's an awful lot to ask the town for $480,000. Thank God we got the state aid match, state aid. But what Benji and I had discussed, and he is committed to work with the CIP, is that sometime this summer, probably before he starts his road construction work and after the bad weather's over, we're gonna look at all 66 miles of the town's Class 5 road and classify, and I'll use the term sections, because a section of road may be great, some might be okay for shim and overlay, and some may be a disaster. So we're gonna try to survey all the 66 miles in the town and come back with basically a road map of the town. It's gonna be the tax map so we can basically color in the roads with the various conditions and bring back next year and say, we're putting $480,000 into this every year, but we really have, making this up, $2 or $3, $4 million worth of real work to do at some point. So maybe next year, and I'm not sure it's going to necessarily fly, but I think it's important, incumbent on the CIP committee, to look at those big issues in the town that are coming up in the years to come, roads being the biggest asset we have. And the question is, we may recommend that we not only do the 480 as we have been, but possibly go for a 10-year bond for $1 million and figure how many miles of roads that are capable of accepting the shim and overlay. And the candidates for that would be, a lot of the subdivisions were done 25, 30 years ago, which is a lot of roads in this town. They haven't had anything touch them. And so I think you could lose $1 million of shim and overlay, which is like 13.5 miles. That's like 20, it's like 25%, 20% of our town. So the question is, we're gonna try and get a handle on this next year. And it's not intended to replace the 480, because he still needs that money for the roads, summer roads reconstruction. It's a question of get out in front of this problem, because every year we don't touch them, and there's another year of deterioration. The very basic property of an asphalt, they call it asphalt concrete. Typically concrete, people think about cement. Portland cement mixed with an aggregate with water. Asphalt concrete is bitumen. It's that black sticky stuff when they're done pulling everything else above that off the stack of the refinement, the cracking stack. What you got left is this sludge, this the lowest of the low grade of asphalt or oil. So they basically mix that, the aggregate, lay it down, and it does dry out over time. It's just like oil and any volatile, it'll eventually dry out. When that happens, the flexibility goes away, so the performance of that starts to crack. And if it starts cracking, the water gets in it, especially in New Hampshire, you get ice and further degradation. So basically, for this year, requesting for $480,000 as we had last year, and you may see something coming forwards next year as a big swing to help take some of the progressive damage of the town roads. Arrest that. Any questions on that? Next question is the bridge improvement. Nothing much has changed, thanks to the town of Weare for putting $105,000 in the coffers, so to speak. We're coming again for one more year. It's intended that the three bridges are, I'll call them bridges, but it's listed on the red bridge list for the state of New Hampshire, but there's really one bridge on River Road for $1.5 million and roughly $300,000 for two on Low Road and Peacock, Francistown Road or Peacock Brook, right? There's two of them on a very short distance. So those numbers were given to us by the state. That would be all the total engineering and the construction. And the state will match us for 80%, and we're liable for 20%. And Tom put it well the other night that it's always competition to get the state aid. But if you actually have the money in the bank, so to speak, and the other guy they're trying to talk to and keep their money doesn't even have the money, it's a promise to come, we can probably get in the front of that line. So when the River Road Bridge kind of fell apart last year, we had to re-wicker the whole town order by which we're going to do the culverts and the roads, the bridge. So we managed to do that. I haven't found any more details on that, but our understanding is 2020, the $1.5 million will be expensed for replacing the bridge on River Road. Only caveat for that is that the state believed there was very low probability that we could fix the bridge. If it's so bad we got to replace the bridge, it comes under the new EPA Water Act standards and everything else, DES, where you may have to replace the abutments on the bridges to refocus how the water from the river kind of curves through that area. and they have different specifications to make sure there's no erosion to the side of the river. So, assuming we can still do it for the sort of the rationale that we used for 2 years ago, we should be able to do it for 1.5 million. But we won't know that until we get there in 2020 and find out what the real requirements are at that time. Any questions on the bridge? Okay, you'll see other schedules here for equipment like a backhoe. What I did ask Benji to do, and this is just a quick effort, this is looking from 2018 through 2032 for his equipment. Just when do you think you're going to have to replace this sometime in the future? So you can kind of see where his thought pattern is. This may mature, and pieces will go in front of it, other pieces will go behind it. But this is what I asked him to do. Look at all your major equipment and give us a schedule when you think sometime over the next number of years till probably the greatest last one on the schedule. We just bought that 2 years ago. And we have the transfer equipment. Page 15. This is, Chief is requesting 2 vehicles. We got 3 last year, and 3 have gone off to the state auction. We got something, what, $6,000? Which may be the excursion, probably half of that.
A little more than that. Yeah, a little more than half.
So the actual police cars.
Yeah, 40.
There's not much left. He's requesting 2 more, and his objective right now is to select 7 and 9, the red ones, the red band. And he also says that he'd be willing, if that happens to get approved and purchased for 5 total new ones over 2 years, he would be looking at reducing his fleet from 8 down to 7. Now, it's worth noting that when he took the department over, we had 10 cars, and we removed them down. Well, actually, they self-elected. I think the Astro van rusted out and couldn't pass inspection, and I think that happened also with the Durango. So those vehicles have been retired or expired. I don't know which one, but they're not here anymore. I think the Durango may be in back of the DPW station.
Still? Yeah.
Somebody said that. So the question becomes, he currently has 8, and if he can get the 2 new ones, he would be willing to drop to a fleet of 5, and then, a fleet of 7, and that includes the ACO car. And he wants to pop the ACO, the Animal Control Officer's car, out because it's just about falling apart. And there's a mistake on page, there's no page on the other one. I guess it'll be the next page. I don't know what it is. Oh, I guess it is 16. Very faint. I don't know if I got this wrong or if he got it wrong, but cars 7 and 9, he's expecting to get rid of those. So I don't think they're going to be available for pushing one of them down. So I think 7 and 8 are the ones he's going to keep. 6 and 8 are the ones he's going to keep. One of those will become a candidate for the ACO replacement. That's why when you brought it up the other night,
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't right. I didn't want to debate the issue. So that's pretty much where we are on the police department. Any questions on that? Next, we're going to Parks and Rec. This is a request for 2, they call them pavilions. I call them a shelter. There's a picture there. If you've been down to Club State Park or Chase Park, you'll see that there's these, basically on posts and a roof. And this is purchased in the form of a kit, and you have a local contractor lay the concrete as a pad to put them on, and they come and assemble them on the site. So the Bolton Field has very fortunate to have that asset given to us by the Bolton family. But over the years, I don't know how many it's been, maybe 15 years or even more than that, we haven't done a lot to it. There's been some maintenance for the fields, but there are still, I know there is a multi-phase plan that was drawn up, but it never even got executed. But this is sort of the step one, maybe 0.5, maybe not quite half a step, but there's really no shelter there, and there's a lot of people show up for the ball fields, young kids. There is a playground there, and so this will allow having at least 2 places for shelter for young kids and families, picnics or whatever they want. So the request is $60,000 for one, quantity 1, 20 by 36, and 16 by 20. And I know that site gets an awful lot of use by the town. And I don't think this will be anywhere near a waste to do this. I may not have a priority of other things, but still, we do very little for the parks and recs in the town. Well, there is a Chase Park, and we do open that, and we do subsidize that to keep that open. This is designed 140 mile an hour wind, 45 pounds per square foot of snow load. So it's designed for the area. Any question on that? Okay. I don't think Mike's coming. The next request is the library. And when you think of a library, if you were stuck in the 19th and 20th century, you'd think of a library like the one we have here today. Since the last director retired and Mike Sullivan's come on board as the director, he has different ideas of what a library is, and he's currently running more programs, and he sees an opportunity to continue that. And one of the impediments is in the near term, or even in the medium term, is that there's only so much space in that library. Now, he's not defining whether or not he wants a new library, or if he wants to have like a civic center, which includes the library and maybe some of the town buildings, or an expansion of the current library. He's not even at that range yet. What he has requested as a department head, $25,000, and this is the first installment of 4. So this is his request. I wish he was here. He was tied up on something else. He said he might be here by 8. I told him I think I'm going to hope to be done by 8. So I hope I can represent him well enough. If not, if you do have any significant questions, what his objectives are. I do know that a lot of towns, I'm on the library foundation for the library, and I do know that there is a huge trend in terms of moving away from the traditional dusty books on the shelf library. And it's more into a civic activity center, which requires an entirely different infrastructure. And so may not be possible in the 5 or 10 year plan. But what he's asking for is having some money to go off and do the planning and engineering to help substantiate the initial ideas of what's going to go on for trading off. Any questions on that? Thank you. Next, I'm here to speak on 2 items. The first being the bell tower. Tom, have you wore these guys out on the bell tower yet?
Constantly.
Constantly. So I don't think I could add anything to this. I probably could only distract from this, detract. Let me go on to the second one. And you got an extra piece of paper here. Second one, unless you have a question. I'm sure Tom would wax
It's
on
still in
endlessly.
my folder. I have it.
Just a few minutes.
Because Dick's here, we talked at the deliberative session about putting together some kind of a package for a project as opposed to simply putting money into the government building and maintenance fund. So we have estimates on doing the bell tower as a separate project, and that's why this appears in the CIP.
Good, thanks. The next item is fire suppression at the DPW garage. And I'd ask you to take a look at this paper here. Some of you might have, 2 of you may have seen this the other night. The other 3 probably haven't seen it. I gotta thank Beth for helping me put this together and a lot of the other background information for the whole CIP. She's done a great job in helping us understand what the budgets are, what the actuals in the past were. What this looks like is, always ask yourself, why bother spending $262,000 for a fire suppression system in the building that's deemed by the state fire marshal to be safe? Because it has a concrete wall to some level, maybe 6 or 8 feet, and then 3 layers each side of 2x6 steel studs for a 3-hour fire rating. Well, there is a cost benefit here of spending $250,000, and what I try to convey in this little slideshow, right, this single slide, is that everybody thinks we have insurance. We really don't have insurance. We're in a risk pool. Primex has I call it town functions. This town probably has 3, both schools and the town. And there's 175 functions in their risk pool. And basically what happens is they have a price to join the club, some money each year to be a member of the club. I think that's $85,000, $90,000 for us. And then if you incur a liability that they will pay for, they reclaim a good part of that money over the next 5 years. It's not unlike your fire insurance. Most people think if they turn in for the domestic fire insurance, if you turn in your bill to the insurance company, what they do is they get it back from you for 15% for 3 years, 10% for the next 3 years, and 5% for the next 3 years. A total of 9 years, roughly 10% of that cost over that period of time. So it's not a small number, but here it's a little steeper. Over the 5-year period, Beth and I try to figure this out based on some of our actual claims we got against the town, against the town has submitted to the Primex. And it winds up about 60% repayment. So if the building is worth, and this is hypothetical because today it costs $1.36 million for the building. 5 years, it could easily be 1.5, so I'm picking sometime in the future. 1.5 million for the replacement cost of the building. The Primex will cover 100% of that, and the contents. When I say contents, I mean the chattel, the tools, the compressor, torches, whatever else is in there for actual tools for doing the business. Vehicles, they'll only cover the actual values of the vehicles. If most of our vehicles, 6 of them, have over 10,000 hours, the price of the vehicle is probably, instead of being $215,000, it's more like $20,000 or $30,000. So if we had all brand new equipment in there, or actual replacement cost, it'd be $3.5 million worth of stuff in there, and that's a rolling stock. But since we don't have new stock, the only ones we could say we do is the loader and the grader for the most part, and 2 trucks. There's roughly around $1.5 million there. So, with that said, if heaven forbid we lost $5 million with the actual replacement, I should say replacement cost, we have to replace the vehicles. We wouldn't really get a check for $5 million. You might get a check, but they're going to expect you to pay it back. They're not going to give you the actuals on the vehicle. So basically, we would have to have $3.8 million of that 5 out of our pocket over 5 years. And say nothing about the impact to the town services, because Benji says it'll take a year to buy all that equipment. They don't even manufacture the stuff. If you call tomorrow morning for 10 trucks, they laugh at you and say, we got to go build these trucks. There's nobody sitting on the yard ready to buy. Some of the graders you might be able to rent some of the stuff, but most of the trucks. So The why bother question is, if you have an asset for replacement cost of $5 million and $262,000 is roughly $250, so it winds up being 4% of the 1/25, 4% of the cost. So you could basically buy the risk now today for 4% of the total value, pretty much on today's price. So nobody wants to spend $250,000 for a fire protection system, especially when it's state-approved fire marshal. But there is a very good business case. If you were a business that worried about interruption of service, you got contracts, you can't meet your contracts, you would see this as a very reasonable thing. I'm not so sure the town of Weare would see it that way. We'll never know until it gets on the ballot, but it depends how you sell it. So I guess my point is, I looked at it this way because I was trying to figure out why would the town of Weare want to spend $260,000 for a building that's deemed safe by the state. Well, the state doesn't say safe and will give you all the money for everything destroyed. It's up to you. They're just saying that it probably won't totally burn down. But on the off chance it does, the town is exposed at $5 million. And you're going to get like 1.2 back. So that's pretty much the rationale. I don't have any more than that on it. The next couple pages. This is an attempt. Thank Beth again for this. These next two pages, 21 and 22. And it's a little bit, even though on page 22 it says, for every $861,441 we spend, it's $1 on the tax rate. That's only good for 2017. That's a value. Was that also the value for 2018 as well, Naomi?
I believe that's the value for 2018.
Okay, sorry, for 2018. If you go backwards in year, that value is less. So these numbers, that's why I didn't put a tax impact in there, because it's very hard to go back. I guess I could ask Beth next year to go do that and find out what the value was and figure all this stuff. But I like to point out at the bottom of the tax impact to the town of Weare on 21. See how these numbers have been up and down, up and down, up and down? Well, you would like to get them relatively flat if you had obligations that are staring you in the face in the future, like trucks and stuff like that. So, nobody likes spending the money before they have to. But with the use of capital reserves, it does smooth it out for the future. Now, some people say, well, I don't want to wait 3 years for my money to be spent, taken away from me, and put it in a capital reserve to buy a truck in the future or something. Well, the other choice is you get these variations in the tax rates or the actual raised by taxes, tax impact here. And the last page is kind of showing, in case anybody wondered, what bond issues we got running, what short-term municipal leases we have and how many years left to them and how much a year it is, how much offsetting revenues we have. This attempts to show what it was been historically and where we are today. So that's all I got. Just money. A lot of it.
A lot of it.
Anyone have any questions that you have?
More of a question of the, I guess, the board, actually. How was, just sitting back for a couple weeks now, reciting in my head what we were going with our warrant articles. How was the 262 number come to? How did we come to that number? Where did that come from?
That's a good
And what kind
You want
of,
to talk, you want me to?
Yeah.
and what kind of
We can
suppression
kinda
system is
go
that?
down. I actually had a conversation with Naomi on that too today, but that's something that we still have to verify and work on between now and the time we put it on the warrant.
Okay.
Uh,
Wasn't that just a blanket bid that we
Yeah,
came up
because
with?
I think,
what has been bid out like once before, and just used it as a number to put in there.
yeah, I think, Jack, we had a conversation earlier in the week, and your take on it was that it was, the total of the building would have cost with
All the
fire
requirements.
suppression included.
That's how I
minus-
understand it.
Minus what it would cost, yeah, and they only had a little different take on that, I believe.
We may all be wrong.
Yeah, at any rate, the bottom line is that that's a number that needs work before we put it to the voters, so we know that we've got the proper numbers in there before we ask for it.
Well, and that's you know that's part of my question. The other part is what kind of suppression system are we talking in the truck bed? Are we talking water, or are we
Yes.
foam, or
I think it's, my understanding is it's water.
okay?
It's a cistern of 12 to 15,000 gallons
Okay.
inside of a little room.
Mm-hmm.
It's got it was intended at some point, and that has gone by, but to have a standalone pump.
Mhm.
Some people say do electric and buy a big enough generator to run that too, as well as doing. I think it'd be cheaper now, based on we already own a 50 kW generator for the main building, to buy a equivalent 30 kW pump.
Mm-hmm.
They can spec it out, you know, how many gallons per minute do you need?
Right.
And you can figure out how much horsepower, how many gallons per minute, how many horsepower,
Right.
how many kilowatts you need to generate it. So, some of the variables is how big is the pump, and also the prime mover to turn the pump. And is that propane,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, I don't think it's gonna be very much smaller than the number.
Okay.
But it may be a little bit higher because
Mm-hmm.
economy of scale of building a 10,000 square foot building versus a 200 square foot, whatever that size little building would be, there's no economy of scale building a small building.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So
I mean, I'm on the fence for suppression myself still. I would say if I'm on the fence, I'm leaning towards it, but I want to make sure it's the right system. That's my thing. And in the
and I'm
bays,
not an expert at it.
right? And in the bays, I mean, what do you got in the bays? You got fluids, steel braided hoses, electrical, and tires. You don't have anything really Class A combustible out there. So I want to make sure we have the right system out there. I'd hate to put all the water, out there and have it punch off and really do nothing, and be wasted money in that system. If foam or some kind of a chemical, and if it swells the number substantially, I don't know that, but I'd like to see the right agent put out there to make sure that we actually put the fire out.
Well, there's two. One is, if you're thinking of safety of life, it isn't so much put the fire out as make it so
It's
that
time.
you can get out.
It's time. No, I know that.
So it depends on which argument you're going to hold. I mean, I've only made the argument of not having a huge bill handed to us.
Yeah, your argument's financial more than life
Financial,
safety,
but the
right?
It could also be financial because if it's considered a wrongful death, that's a whole different
Opens to a lawsuit,
so
right.
I'm not trying to paint this thing one with the other. I'm just saying, kind of the number that was kind of subtracted out of the total before they added the 50 grand back in to do the wall, winds up being this number.
Right.
But if you're building everything, when you got everybody there, the excavators there and everything, it's a lot cheaper per square foot than it is trying to do, although the chattel, the stuff that goes in for the fire, be it the, pipes and the cistern, they're all kind of the same cost.
Right.
It's building the little building, keep it all together.
Yeah, the little shed, right?
So I think there's a chance of it going up more than going down. Just
Right.
my own.
And that'd be my feeling as well.
But then
Right.
again, if you do change the mechanism of fire suppression, because all we really did was to divide the building, bifurcated the building into one side and the other. We don't have 24-hour service. If nobody hears a fire alarm, if it never triggers for some reason, who the hell knows why, it's going to burn down. So the question is, fire suppression has a lot to do with what are you trying to solve, the human aspect of it or the capital aspect. So this was meant to be a placeholder till we finally have to come up with a number. And I'll be happy to work on that if anybody things like could be a benefit, but this is the best number we have right now, so.
Okay.
Yeah. The fire chief was at the CIP meeting.
Yes, he was.
You were
Mhm.
there too.
Yep, I was. Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I heard what he said. Yeah.
So, no need to repeat. Okay. Any other questions of Jack?
Again, I want to thank the CIP members. I think this has been the 5th year I've been working on, maybe the 6th year, I can't remember. But it seems like every year we get a little bit more rigor in the process, and so hopefully we don't change it much. We just make it a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Are there any department head items you're aware of for tonight?
Nope.
I would like to, if the board doesn't object, move this ACO position discussion down toward the end of the agenda, because I think there may be portions of it where we have to go into executive non-public, and because we're gonna get on the verge of talking about personalities
Mhm.
perhaps. So rather than going into non-public and everybody wait in the hall, we'll just rearrange the agenda and put that toward the end. So we'll go next to the SEDS project discussion and finalization.
I did provide everybody with an updated copy. It still says draft on it, but it's got a lot of different wording than what you had before.
What were the changes?
The narrative for the communication is completely different
Okay.
as far as project description. That's really all we did with that one, and we made some subtle changes to the River Road reconstruction one.
Last few sentences were added.
And the last paragraph was added,
Okay.
and then we really didn't. We looked at changing, we added a couple things to the goals, meaning a last sentence to goal 6 on the River Road one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we changed much more than that. I know we didn't do anything with the goals on the communication one.
You might want to, I didn't think of this earlier, when we talked, but under the funding partners, include in that section, even though it's mentioned up above, the contribution the town is making toward the bridge over a 4-year period. It does say that in that last paragraph, but under
In the funding, it says state bridge aid approximate, and I put the 80%.
Right. But when we have the town saving up toward it, we might want to add something in there. Again, this is not, just to emphasize, this is not a grant application. This is so that we can have our projects listed in this comprehensive economic development strategy plan. That's a combination between, combination effort between Southern New Hampshire and Central New Hampshire planning. So if we have a project listed there and then we find a grant source, it's like a plus when we go to apply.
Mhm.
It's included in the SEDS report. So just to emphasize that if this came down to writing a grant, it would all have to be done over in a lot more detail than this anyways. So that's really that. The second one on the communication system, we really don't have any numbers on it, and so we rewrote that to indicate that there aren't any numbers available because we're still in the process of figuring out what works and what's needed.
Do we need a motion for these?
To submit them, I would just ask that you really accept the project description as here, knowing there will be no changes, but then we might want to do some tinkering with how it met the goals of the sets. It has to be in by
Next Monday.
So, just accept that they are projects and they would go pretty much as appeared, but there may need to be a little bit of rewording on page 2. But the front page with the descriptions are as they would be submitted. As of the end of last week, there were only 4 towns that had submitted.
Wow.
Everybody was late. Remember, we talked about needing a bigger time frame.
Apparently everybody else did too.
So they're still asking for submissions because they only had, Goffstown has submitted several projects. One of theirs is the continued work on their rail trail.
Yep.
And another one is their extension, I think it's a sewer line in the Canardville area. I'm not positive of that. But, and then I don't remember what the third one was. Then it was a very brief description of a project in Boscawen.
Mm-hmm.
And Bradford was going to submit something, I know, but they didn't have it in hand yet. I guess just a motion to submit these 2 projects to the SEDS is all we need.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
So does that mean it's gonna come back, or can I submit them?
Initially, the intent's there, so I think just the cleanup would be fine. I don't think we have to see it again. Maybe email it
I
to
don't
us.
think you have to come back.
Maybe just email it to us,
Yeah.
the final
I
draft.
just wanted to take a look at, I didn't have time to do that today, how it matches up to the goals that they have. It says, describe how this project will meet one or more of the goals of the SEDS. It doesn't really have to meet all 6 of them. So, and maybe it'll go just like it did. I don't know. I just want to take another look.
Okay.
Okay. What's next?
Meeting minutes.
Feet roll.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Minutes of November 6th. Anyone have anything on page 1? I did not. Page 2, I have one little thing, and that's all, and in the bold part that says 2018 DPW budget, the third line down, board provide with, I crossed out the word and. Board with a couple of other updates and questions, it was word in and then didn't have any purpose. That's the only thing I had on that page. Anybody else?
I have 2. On the first paragraph, the third line up from the bottom, main goal is to add the word to make if possible.
Third line up, not including the motion.
Main goal to make it passable.
Okay.
In the second paragraph, the third line up the end of the third line, which is almost complete. Add the word is.
Mhm.
That was it.
Page 3, anyone? Page 4, I just had one word change, where it says town office insulation. The second sentence, the board felt they would like time to read it, where it says that would like time to read it. I just changed that today. Anyone else have anything on page 4? Page 5. We go for the minutes of November 6th as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay. Rick, did you have a vote one minute?
I'll go aye. I was here for enough of it, I think.
Okay.
I was sitting in New Jersey at that time.
At least you could have been still in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, right about now, I wish I was.
Manifests. Move to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payable checks dated November 16th, 2017, as included in the following manifests. Payroll, $51,371.36. Accounts payable, $47,592.76. A supplemental accounts payable of $210,078.80, which is a payment to the contractor in the highway garage. So the total of the manifest is $309,542.92. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You have a copy?
No, that's the thing. Thank you. Last week when there was only 3 of you, I asked about Sugar and Spice lease. I think you guys had it. I do have it back now signed by Sugar and Spice. So I don't know if you want to make a motion or hand it down the table. But it's a 3-year lease, $125 a month. And one of the back page needs to be signed. So I think you need a motion.
Mm-hmm. I would say so.
I got a couple of questions. Do we have a copy of their childcare license and insurance?
Insurance, childcare license. The letter that they'd like to maintain the lease with us.
Was that a yes or no?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Hmm.
Anyone, ready to make a motion on that?
Move to approve the lease agreement with Sugar and Spice Preschool Incorporated for the 3-year term commencing November 13th, 2017 to the date of November 13th, 2020 at the rate of $125 per month.
Second.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so as that's going down the table, the other thing you wanted to hold off on is a clean purchasing policy to sign with the changes that you talked about 2 weeks prior to that.
I would like to reopen the discussion before we sign the new policy. No, I have a pen here. Ready to go.
Yeah, the whole packet went that way. Looks like John signed it now. Uh-oh.
There are some issues that have come up here.
I think-
Concerning,
The whole, did
Yeah,
the whole lease go?
I sent the whole lease that way, and that's only one page.
Oh, did I?
or did I?
Should've been 3 pages in the signature sheet.
I don't think
Right
Yep, there it is, right there.
Well, I had a copy, so I thought that was my
You did have a
copy that I was
copy.
keeping.
No, that's the hard agreement.
Let me make sure.
The copy, I think, said draft in the middle, didn't it?
Let me see, make sure.
I know it was in the
Sit draft on it.
Okay, this is-
Thank you.
Here's the whole thing. 5 signatures, good to go. All right, back to topic.
Yeah, there's some things that came up concerning vehicle repairs particularly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that the way that this is phrased, it works well for items like vehicle repair. I think Benji has expressed that as an
Mhm.
issue too. And I don't know how it would be phrased differently, but I think if you're applying this to a new purchase or a piece of construction where you want 3 estimates, it's very valid. But if you bring a truck in for repair, I think there are times when it just doesn't work. A truck or another piece of equipment, it could be a car. If there's an established vendor, for example, we get quite a few invoices from Chapel Tractor for various pieces of equipment from the highway department. I think the other truck, various things like that. If they have an established account and established relationship with a repair facility, I'm not sure that it benefits us to ask them to get at least 2 more quotes on a repair. But that's the basis of what I wanted to bring up for discussion.
Well, I'll strongly disagree with that because, we can use a vendor all day long, but I mean, if we have an engine go down, you want to authorize $30,000 for an engine overhaul with a warranty? Because that's what it costs for a truck or an engine overhaul. And let the department head make that decision just because we use that vendor. I don't feel as that's right. So where do you put the cap number on that? And I watched the YouTube video because I was not here in the public session last time. And I agree and I don't agree because I feel that some of that stuff can be still bid out. I mean, if you have a truck go down in the middle of the summer, on the highway side of it, we'll say, you have a truck go down in the summer, you can afford to, at that time, to me, bid that project out if it's going to be more than $1,000 or $1,500 if we choose to, alter the number $1,500. Same with the cutting edges. I understand that we've been using the same vendor for years, but is there a better price out there? I mean, I think that's what our job is up here is to ensure that we are, spending the town's money wisely. And with that said, I understand that we have, a relationship with these people, but on the flip side of it too is if a truck goes down in the middle of a storm, to me, it's whoever can get the truck in first, because at that point, we need to have the truck. So there should be some give and take on that, and I agree to that point. That hey, if the spring pack breaks on one side and it has to go to Donovan, it has to go to Donovan. It's one of them emergency applications. But if we have the time to make this happen, it needs to be used. I'm sorry.
I don't disagree with that. When you say a $30,000 engine.
But where do you stop? Just because it's a repair.
That's why the
policy's there.
The policy, though, I think needs a refining to allow a little more flexibility. Even if you bring something in for repair, and even if you have an estimate on it, they can find other stuff. So
I mean, I'll go
take it
one.
someplace
I'll go one
else.
step further on the fact that I do somewhat agree with you. Is dealer specific parts. You're tied to that part number. You can't. How you gonna if you need to have it and it's still a dealer only item, how you gonna quote it? You can't. So to me, there needs to be a maybe there needs to be tweaking to it, but there still needs to be a common sense approach to it on when to apply it and when not to apply it, and just a blanket of it's gonna be too hard.
Yeah.
That doesn't float water with
We
me.
don't really disagree.
Yeah.
It's a matter of how can we phrase this to allow the flexibility when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's gonna be a lot of verbiage in it, but I common sense, I hate seeing that we have this policy and it seems like the last few years that I can remember, it's been ignored, and I'm just tired of it. And that's why I've really been, I'll say I'm the spearhead on this, is been pushing it, but it's there for a reason. It was put in place for a reason.
Well, the part-specific issue,
Mhm.
okay, if you've got to have a part for a particular truck, and that's the only vendor for it.
Then that's the only vendor for it.
So, that's one
Mhm.
exception. The other thing is the emergency repair.
That's another exception.
So I think that we need that language in there, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't disagree with you at all. If you got a $30,000 repair, replacement of an engine, or maybe even a transmission, I don't know what they cost, but probably more than that. I'm sure they will, well over $1,000.
They're over $1,000, and some of the work that we've had done on these trucks could have been bid out, as far as I'm concerned. Now, granted, if it happens, and you look 3 days out and there's a storm coming, and you got a vendor, you call a couple of guys up real quick and say, hey, I need this fixed, and they can say, yeah, we can slip you right in this afternoon. Then that's what needs to happen, because we need to have that piece of machinery on the road. I get it. But, in the summer, I understand they're hauling dirt, but to me, that's not as big of a priority as snow removal, emergency services type thing. And to me, it blankets across all departments. It's not, I feel we're picking heavily on the highway department right now, but it blankets across the map. I mean, if you're looking for, and we'll just go with the police department, the Weare desk that they bought. I mean, is Amazon the best price, or is Staples the best price? To me, it wouldn't take very long to get, just, and at that point, it's all online shopping. I put in this, and I mean, everybody's been on Google. You go on Google and you put in an item, and the Google Shopping comes up on the top line. There's to me, you print the 3 of those off. That would hold water with me. Hey, I did do my due diligence. I did look 1, 2, 3. Here are the prices, and I got the best price I could find right there. So to me, it needs to be a common sense approach. That's all.
And I think also did something too about the, waiting until the following meeting, approvals could be done. I guess, why can't we email? If something comes up, why can't we email?
Well, you're really
Yeah,
crossing,
you
you gotta be careful, you're crossing the line there as far as right to know. if you're
And meetings.
making a
And it's
decision.
not a vote, it has to be done in
You
public.
Yeah.
can't make a decision through.
You cannot,
Right.
You can be provided with information,
Yeah.
you
but
Right.
you
can't
can't,
make decisions.
you can't make
Yeah.
decisions.
No, no.
I mean, if you said again, a call emergency meeting, I don't know how that runs down, but on the flip side of it too.
Would you need that if, okay, let's use the truck engine just because
Mhm.
of that. Okay, the department head gets 3 estimates on replacing the engine. Does he really need to bring it before the board before going with that price?
On that $30,000, you
I would-
$5,000 or more.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. But even some of the work we've had done. I mean, I can pick one out of the box now. It'd be with the a bell housing clutch job right around that $4,000 mark. That could be bid out. There's a couple. I mean, I know the vendor that did it. There's another vendor in town that is capable. 2 or 3 phone calls and just written numbers. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for formal.
Just go one step as far as the process again. Does that department head, replacing that bell housing and so forth, $4,000, does he need to bring those 3 estimates to the board before that he gets the work done, if he can bring us the paperwork and show that he got 3 estimates?
That I would say no. I would say that the job should be performed. You can't, at that point, to me, it's a piece of infrastructure. You can't just let it sit for 2 weeks, especially if it's in the summer and we're sitting here, we meet every 2 weeks, and now the truck's down for 4 weeks possibly. But if to me, if the best price has been sought out, homework has been done and can be shown.
I mean, there are a lot of things like that. Just go to winter tires on whether it's a highway vehicle or whether it's a
Fire truck
police
or-
vehicle,
yeah.
fire truck. Okay, so the department head gets
That's kind of a,
3 different.
But
that's kind of, because
but
you've
that-
already got a state bid
you
list.
already got a
You
state
can buy
bid
tires
list
through the
for-
state for like, cruiser tires are like peanuts. You
Right.
pay less than what you pay
And
for
same
your
thing
own
with truck
tires.
tires.
Truck tires, the same thing.
Well, that's
So you're
not-
gonna get a bid for, you're gonna get a bill for the state bid list, truck tires,
yeah.
car tires, or
It's gonna be
whatever.
the same cost.
And then you're gonna get a bid or a bill from somebody that's gonna mount them and balance them for them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if, and
providing, going strictly by our policy, the person would need to get 3 vendors.
If it's over $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's
Well,
under
it's gonna-
$1,000,
it's
you can
gonna
go
be
to
a
his
You buy a
own.
pair of steering tires for the front of a dump truck, it's gonna be more than $1,000.
Yeah.
right.
You're
But-
looking at,
But buying them, but mounting and balancing, you're not.
no,
Just like
Mounting
buying
and
a
balancing
tire
is
from the
gonna
state
be
bid list
like,
is the state bid list.
like I
Mhm.
said.
So then you go to somebody, and if somebody's gonna mount and balance for $50 a tire, you can do 4 cars for $800. You know what I mean? So you're gonna get an $800 bill for labor from somebody, and then you're gonna get the state bid for the tires. But that somebody's already bid that price out. I'm not gonna call Goodyear, Firestone,
No.
Michelin.
It's
No.
all the same
When
price.
it's already,
We need something in our policy that says that.
I think you
Because
talk
it
about the
doesn't.
state bid list.
Yes.
Does it?
Yeah.
I mean, you go to get tires from, I was talking to Rick, as I know, it's GCR, which is Firestone.
Right.
Firestone, Bridgestone. They're on the state bid list. You buy the tires from them.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll charge you an additional, come to your shop, deliver them, and can charge an additional $75 to mount and put the tires on the vehicle. If you want it done. They'll have them mounted and put on the vehicle. It's for $75 extra cost per vehicle, per tire.
Okay, so. is
So, I
that-
mean, that's
is that in
separate
there?
above and beyond the list.
What section is
So-
that?
It says purchases and services made through the state's contractor list
Yeah.
of contracts. Who they have a contract with.
Yeah, they have
list,
multiple
which is
contracts.
available.
For instance, they have contracts with Chevy,
Municipalities to obtain
Dodge,
Dodge,
Ford, right.
price.
International,
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
all of them,
Okay,
John Deere, Cat, whatever.
I think we gotta communicate that to the department heads. okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are specific things. I'm not trying to be difficult, I just wanna make sure that once we get this signed, that we don't have to come back and
Visit it in 6 months.
revisit it in a month because we've got. so
No, I
many
agree.
things going on.
I agree. I like I said, I just want, in this whole time, I've just wanted a common sense approach to spending. Just because we've used them forever, that doesn't mean that we're not gonna change someday,
And I understand that.
you know?
I just wanna make sure that we don't tie people's hands in
Right,
critical situations.
right. And like I said, I mean, if it's the only game in town, it's the only game in town. What are you gonna do?
What
Right,
else?
if you get 3 prices and one's the lowest, but he's 3 weeks out and you need the truck in a week, it's not gonna
Yeah, that
happen.
doesn't.
Exactly, and if it's only a $200, $300 difference, and it ain't worth it at all. It ain't worth the time to wait, right? So, yeah.
I think the other thing you have to look at too in that, for instance, you take a truck, let's say a truck, could be cruising. You
Like
take
I
it
say,
down.
let's stop beating on the highway department. Let's go to the cruisers, all right?
Fire department. Yeah, I mean, a transmission average for even the big trucks in the area of anywhere from 35 to 45.
$5,000.
$5,000, depending on the size of the vehicle, depends on the transmission. Car or pickup truck's about the same. You're looking at least $3,500 for a transmission change. You get in there, you find out, oh, well, you got another issue. You
This is
got,
bent, that's bent, this
that's
is
bent,
yeah.
something else is bent.
Something's
You know,
broke.
are you gonna go get bids?
While they're there. No.
No, because,
No.
that has to be.
It's
You do
unexpected.
ask them to close it up. So
Yeah, you're gonna
say,
Yeah.
close it up, we'll send a record, come
Yeah,
again.
put the tranny in the trunk. We're
You
gonna
know.
bring it back, yeah. Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so I'm saying that's something you have to.
yeah.
Not that that's not in the realm of possibility, but.
It's
I mean,
not, no.
If you find out that the vendor is not what it's he's doing was proper, but I mean, but in the average, most of the vendors who, anybody does business
Yeah.
with are pretty reputable.
Right, and I'm not saying that, and if there's any vendors watching, don't think that I am thinking that the vendors are gaffing us, because I know that they're not. I know that for a fact.
Is that a technical term? Yeah.
But I just want to say that that we're here to make sure that the money's spent wisely, and that's just our job. So
So I don't think you already made a motion to make the amendments, so I typed it with the amendment date on it, 10/30/17.
which isn't wrong, but I think we need to amend it again.
Okay.
I think.
I think
I
we're gonna
don't, I don't
refine.
think you're gonna be able
Oh,
to put
there he
everything
is.
in black and white on that purchasing policy.
No.
He's been watching. No, actually, he's been out sanding.
Yeah, I've been out, but I went over to eat supper and watch TV.
He's here.
Can I get up and speak to it just a little bit?
Certainly, we've been waiting because we
Yeah.
didn't have anybody else with department heads.
Well, I apologize for not being here for Jack's seminar. He did terrific, as usual, so.
Yeah, you got other
I wanna
priorities
thank
to
him for
handle.
presenting us. And been out on the roads, I was not, we were kinda ready, but not ready enough for this, so.
Well, if you were listening, we're trying to find some middle ground here, so
Yeah.
there's some flexibility, but at the
Yeah.
same time, we have a policy where we know we're getting the best deal for them.
Sure.
Right.
Well, speaking from the highway end, I guess that's my specific concern would be, like a $5,000 cap would be good for me for the 3 written quotes. I don't know, it's $1,000 right now, is that right, as it stands?
1,000 to 5.
So,
We talked about, I think you're probably on the road, we talked about things like tires, that there's a state
Contract list.
contract list.
Well,
so that you can go
right.
and get tires using that without having to get the 3
Right.
bids. We talked about
Dealer only parts.
dealer-only parts.
You
sure,
can't.
and I imagine that would be,
Right, you-
excusable, but.
Right.
Tires, Mr. G's will honor most state bid.
Right.
Tires. Cutting edge is another big one. There's 2 real competitive cutting edge vendors. One has a good product, one doesn't. And we've had that over and over and over. One doesn't, their punch doesn't match up. One cutting edge will fit, and one doesn't. So we have good luck with Jordan, and we like to stay with them. But, doesn't mean I don't check around for prices. It's just every time I need cutting edges, come in and ask if I can spend $5,000 to go buy cutting edges. Kind of stinks because it costs $1,000 gear up one plow, and I got 10, 11 of them.
So he brings up a very good point. So he's gonna get 3 prices for cutting edges, 2 of which don't meet his qualification, and they're going to be less probably.
Mm-hmm.
So at that
Well,
point, the third quote comes in from Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
which is where we've always gotten them. We've had good luck with them. So he goes with Jordan. It's a little bit higher. Is that gonna upset this group?
Well, to me, that would be an apples to orange quote. You've already proven that one product is inferior to the other. So if unless you could find somebody that was apples to apples with Jordan,
Right.
it doesn't exist. So we do what we got to do.
I mean, I ought
Buy it.
everybody try to stretch my dollar the most, but it does take a lot of time, a department this big, to check everything. Get 3 written quotes for everything over $1,000. There's just nothing for a truck that's $1,000, you know that.
Oh no, I know that. I know that.
My drum of motor oil's 900 and something, and
Yeah.
I'm specific to my motor oil now.
Right.
We have that and everything, we test.
Right.
So if that ever gets over $1,000, I can't really send that out to bid.
Yeah.
And I know you guys understand that, but I don't wanna be hung up and get in trouble on a technicality now, because I'm not
Right.
following the rules. That's
Right.
kind of where I'm at. You guys are very reasonable to get along with, but
Most of the
doesn't mean we won't get a new group in 5 years from now, and the rule's a rule, and you didn't do it that way, and
Right.
that's my concern.
Right. No, and that's that's not the objection. No, that's not my intent.
I know that.
I mean, I hope that you understand that.
I do.
That's not my intent.
So when I
And-
needed a transmission last year, I got 4 or 5 written quotes,
Right. Right.
because that was a big number, and I got the best bang for the buck. I talked to Sizemore, and I almost went with somebody else. He said, no.
Mm-hmm.
Sent me somewhere else. It was a better deal, better price, but, so I do check my prices, but
Right.
there's just times I don't have, I need to gear up get my winter tires on. I need to put in a big order probably tomorrow, so.
Right.
It'll stink if I got.
And we mentioned
And I
that, you
planned
know.
on doing it with that company, that's why I don't have prices, because I just had
Right.
planned on going to G's.
Right, and if he matches the state number, you know, again, some of that also is service. You know, the service. You know, you call them up down there and say, hey, I need these. Yeah, we'll get them for you. Bang, they're right there.
Paul delivers them.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, you know,
Try
again,
to use local vendors when possible. I use the guy right across from Mobile to do service at the shop once in a while. I'll give him a few
Yeah.
dollars, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to go to Manchester to do
no,
tire
no, and they got to come to you because you know, trucks need to stay here. So. So no, I like I said, just a common sense type thing. And you know, the other thing is too is like we were talking about too. And I don't know where you caught into the tape here, but
About halfway through.
but yeah, but you know, if the truck goes down and you got 3 days out and there's gonna be a storm, whoever you call to get it in, that's what we expect you to do. You know, at that
I try
point,
to spread that around locally. I've used
Right.
EMS and Sizemore.
Yep.
And we try to do it in house, but
Right.
so much.
There's so much of it you
I got
can't do
4
that.
down right now, you know.
Right,
So
right. So
anyway, I just want to chime in. I don't want to get something in the future where I could be hung up on a technicality.
no.
The big trucks are big bucks.
You put a 0 on it. Take a car and put a 0 on it.
Yeah.
You know, that goes back to what I was saying when you came in. You can't put it in black and white in a first note or a purchasing policy. You can't put it in black and white to cover everything.
Every aspect of it. No, you can't do it. No, I realize
I
that.
don't want to be on the fence and say, well, I think they'll approve it and then do something. You know, I know anything over $5,000 is definitely need permission, but I'd like the permission to be allowed up to that much, I guess. You know, unless it's, I can't even think of an example where it'd be.
Well, I brought it up because I think it's still a work in progress. I'm not
Yeah.
really ready to sign off on
Yeah.
it now with the language that we had, because we only made a couple of minor changes before, and it actually, the one
was redundant.
major minor change we made it harder rather than
Yeah, I know.
because it made it written.
And I don't know if everything was thought of around my department, just that, obviously my department, so that's where my mindset goes. But, you know, the steer tire's $450, you only need 2 of them, and I'm over my limit. So, with the service, so.
But with the tires using the state bid price.
And I gotta check into that, they got the state bid, I don't know if that's always particular to a tread. I gotta do my
Right.
research on that.
Yeah.
That's the thing, we have
I
2
know they do
particular treads that we
Yeah,
use, you know.
yeah. A straight ahead and a winter deep. Yeah,
Exactly, so.
Pretty.
Exactly, and I don't know if that falls
Yeah.
under that. We may
Yeah.
check that.
They had them for both. at one
right.
time.
And I don't think State Boys run the winter deep, do they?
I don't think so.
I think they run some block.
And I'm
Yeah.
gonna start this, it's more of an ice tread, it's called an Arctic, something or other, but, anyway. Well, I was out and about, I'm gonna go back out, I got 5 guys out, that's what I got for trucks right at the moment, so. I'll go back out and check on them.
Is it
No, they
icy?
were, I just met one of them.
Yeah.
Is it icy?
No, just the snow packed just enough to.
It's slippery. It's yeah.
It's the summer tires.
It
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
it is, summer
Yeah.
driving.
Wait till you drive by Mr. G's tomorrow.
Oh, I know.
Be out 114.
Any other time.
Yeah.
So would the state have the plows on?
Yeah,
Yeah, they were 5 and 4s dragging iron tonight.
Yeah.
I saw them.
No.
No,
the
she's
bid
back to the
list.
policy.
Oh,
Back
I'm
to
sorry.
the policy, because that's a big item that you're looking for.
What, the, what,
Cutting edges?
No.
Yeah, well, he's gonna,
well, I will get prices for the plow. Yeah, that, cause
Here,
that's
it's on
9-10
its
grand,
own
so I'll
right,
bring
so
them
on
to
the
you.
bid list
Yeah.
too. I mean, would it be on the bid list for the state?
I don't know, I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
They
Cause they
do.
run mostly funnel plows. I want a power angle, and it'll either be a, I
they
hope an Everest or a Tenco, cause that's what I have.
Okay.
run
but-
both now.
they run them both. Yeah.
I'll get 3 prices, cause that's way up there in money.
Well, the guy at administrative mechanical services.
Yeah,
Jack's got his number.
I do it. I know him quite well.
Dearborn's.
Oh, Dearborn,
Yeah, Jack
well,
Dearborn's got
you
his
talk
number
to
too.
him or the guy
and
at
there's certain
administrative
times you don't wanna go. They have a state bid, you can go state bid truck every year.
Yeah.
They're
But
not
they're
gonna
bid-
suit the town for 15 years.
No, no,
Because they're
absolutely
bid for
not.
highway driving more than
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
being on the highway,
That's
highway,
a-
state roads are a little different.
That's it,
It just gives you the option to.
Right.
And salt,
No, I think
I
that
buy
is-
state bid salt, so I don't have to, that's a big item I don't have to. I
Right.
don't take up no more time, I've got.
Okay.
No, we appreciate it, Benji.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Keep it between the ditches.
Okay. report.
Yeah, I'll start at the top. I don't know, I brought with me the team engineering one that, if anyone's had a chance to look at it. Do you want to talk about that one?
Oh, for the third floor?
For the
Attic?
installation.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I don't know that if you want to talk about that, or where do you want to go with that, but I will tell you that I have a contractor coming Wednesday to look for the water leak. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna be here Wednesday morning
Okay.
in the attic.
Were you able to get the local one that was recommended
Yeah, he
by
called me back.
the major root company?
Yep. So we'll see where that brings us. I don't know, I didn't do anything more with the insulation
Mhm.
because of the six-figured.
Yeah.
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 That's what I'm saying. See what the contractor says while he's
I
up
will.
there.
That's why I
Yeah.
was figuring we would wait and see what
Yeah.
it says.
I
Yeah.
think we ought to hold off. That's-
Well, this probably sounds like a naive way of putting it. The building's been sitting here.
Well,
and it's had incredible snow loads over the years.
That's what I was thinking, and I think I talked to John about that. I mean, sometimes there's a
How
lot.
about the blizzard of '78?
Yeah.
How much snow was on this roof?
Yeah.
It's,
Sometimes I look at these reports and go, "How is this building not falling in yet?" I just,
I mean, of course, we neglect the report and go on and do our thing, and then it
yeah,
falls in.
yeah. 2 feet of snow on it, and thing falls in next week. Yeah.
But then again, as anything else, as it gets older, it gets more tired,
Yeah, that's
The rest
true.
of us, so.
That is true.
I didn't really add anything more than that. The joint loss, I'm trying to firm up some dates. It's trying to coordinate 6 people, 7 people's schedules is not easy. So I don't have a firm date yet, but we are working with that. The RFP, I've partially put the 20 answers to the 20 questions in a spreadsheet that Wendy and I can sit down and look at. So that one's not yet done yet either.
Just RFP for, I'm sorry,
Assessing.
assessing.
Yes.
Yeah, because remember, we got 3 bids
Yeah.
that were apples, oranges, and
Yeah.
bananas. So, I sent out the 20 questions, and now they've come back, so you
Mhm.
wanted it in a spreadsheet like they had done for the cameras, so you can look at it that
Yep.
way. But Wendy and I were gonna review it first and let her have some input, because that's what she's gonna deal with. Budget next week, you got, the police, November 20th, you got the budget of that. Under the correspondence last week, I'm waiting on a response. Avatar's gonna look at that request from the citizen. I talked about in correspondence. The resident had, still had questions after they were given
Oh.
and so she's gonna look at it and let me know, what the discrepancy, if there is one still. It's not just a simple apples to apples. And then Wednesday and Thursday, I'm out for the conference, and then I'll be in late Friday because they're offering a census. Remember, 2020 is when all the census stuff is out. And they're pushing the importance of the accuracy of the information. And there's just a lot of information that they want, and there's been some, I won't say pushback, but, so they're now offering a workshop. They've come up with a software package that you can supposedly put the information in, other than the reams of paper that come and want you to hand fill it out and send it back to somebody to input it in. So I'm gonna go to Merrimack in the morning for that Friday. Then I'll be back here to do the agenda, Tom. And then we just have the ACO. I believe that's all I have.
Okay, public comment? Yeah.
Good evening, Richard Buck. Just a couple of comments regarding the CA Capital Improvement Plan presentation. One is on, don't want to be overly critical of volunteer departments, but Park and Rec seems to be very inconsistent in requesting monies for various things, especially when it comes to ball field. A couple of years ago, it was $80,000 recognized safety issue as a result of poor parking facilities down at Golden Park. Emergency vehicles couldn't get in there. And that didn't pass. And then following year, they requested $36,000 or some more for a plan to develop the boat ramp. it seems like the parking has just gone away, and now this year they want to put pavilions in down at Boulder Field. It just, I don't understand the priorities. If something doesn't pass, it just never comes back again. I would think that, to me, the critical thing down there is providing sufficient parking. It's just an observation based on what I've seen from them. I just don't know if they need some guidance or why they jump around like that. The other thing is the police department cruisers. It appears that obviously we have 3 new cruisers, and he's going to be using 2 existing cruisers, or has 2 existing cruisers, Crown Vics. One with 70,000 miles, and one at 104,000 miles that need to be replaced. Given what happened this year, how long it took for us to get the vehicles, I think we're almost 8 months into the year before we get the vehicles roadworthy. I did some quick calculating, and maybe it wasn't quite quick. I went through the budget and estimated that you're going to have north of $200,000 left in unspent money this year. Also considering that the salt shed's been used for storage, and he hasn't purchased any salt yet, and I think he also has to purchase tires because he didn't have a place to put them. So those relatively expensive items still haven't come out of the budget. And because it took so long to get the cruisers in, because it's such an urgent need, I would ask the board to consider spending, if they have, better in 5 weeks, 6 weeks. If you have money left over in the budget to cover the $85,000 for 2 cruisers, I would urge the board to use that money to purchase the cruisers. It accomplishes a couple of things, get the older vehicles off the road, gets them in a little bit quicker rather than have to wait for March. And so I would ask the board to really seriously consider that. On the government building articles, I guess there's going to be a separate article for the town hall. Is that going to be a separate article, or is that going to be part of the government building and maintenance?
No.
We haven't had that discussion, but at this point, it's considered a separate article.
Standalone.
Unless we change that. And again, it kind of came out of the discussion, deliberative session, and I think you were part of that discussion, that you need to pull things together and put together a project. And we have several over there that are big enough to be individual projects. The bell tower is one, the replacement or repair of the windows is gonna be frightfully expensive. And then there are others that are more, I won't say simple construction, but straightforward construction, like rebuilding the eaves where it's necessary. That probably would not be, that would come out of the building and maintenance fund. So that's our thinking on that now.
Okay.
And to check off what are the major projects, the bell tower,
Sure.
both because it's up there, so it could be leaking, and this would repair the roof as well as the structure of the tower where it's needed. And the other thing is the aesthetics of the town hall will improve tremendously with that tower being used.
Yeah. So the money that's in the government building fund, about $56,000, that's going to be used for other maintenance items. And if it is, because the bell tower is $49,000, I think people may say, well, why aren't you taking out of that existing fund? I realize you should have a minimum amount in there to cover unexpected situations. And I think at the time we put that together was about $30,000 to $40,000. But I'd like to know if you have any plans for the money that's in the capital reserve fund now. I don't need to know now, but
No.
as part of a presentation.
And we do have other things relating to town hall, related to the gazebo. So there are other projects out there, and we have to be able to be on our feet when it comes to deliberative session as far as explaining those. Thank you.
One thing I heard 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when Chief Kelly was in here, was about, he indicated that 2 police officers said through some justification, I don't know what it is, but I imagine it's safety, The two offices could be put in the operating budget, those same offices, additional offices, could be included in the default budget. I also heard the highway department make a request for part-time help. Those are additional people, and they've always been in this town, been put on the separate articles in the warrant. It's one way the people in this town have a means to control the size of government. I can understand why people may not agree with it, but I would hope you would proceed with caution before you start putting additional positions. Include those in the operating budget as opposed to putting those as separate articles on the warrant. And my last thing quickly, my favorite subject is some trash talking. There seems to be conflicting comments being made by members of the board when it comes down to fees at the transfer station. And one selectman indicated that the fee, we're just trying to break even. We're not trying to make any money. And then I heard a selectman say, well, we're making money, it's revenue. I would wish that the board would consider fees only when they're used to offset a service that's being provided. And, I have a list of, I'm assuming you got the latest copy of the transfer station budget and how much money we've made on recycling and how much it cost us for the things that we're being charged for. And I have to say that the items that are being charged for, the fee-based items, with the exception of one, are excellent. I mean, the total for the year is, we've actually, we're 3,000 to the plus side. That's considering all the recyclables, all the fee-based items. So it's really, it's looked like it's being managed well, and it's certainly within reason. But when I look at the bulk items and the fees established with bulk items, it's all pure revenue. There is no offset. There's no cost for that service that you can tell me what it is. You can't. So how is the fee determined? The fee was determined by other towns, and I don't like to do that. It should be based on the cost to provide that service. And you know that the cost of that service is included in the operating budget. So you're charging people to go down there to drop off their furniture. And if those people are paying taxes, they're also paying that portion of their taxes is going towards the cost of hauling and disposal of those items. There's no additional cost to the transfer station. It's a penalty that's being assessed. And for somebody, for it to be, well, it's a revenue, you're gonna get it back, I don't think I'm gonna get it back. It's between $5,000 and $6,000. It was only put in place in 2016. It had never been charged before. And somebody wanted to use that money, and some people know this, that thought that that money could be used for other things. It could be put in a capital reserve fund. Well, can't. And you really can't even use it as part of a revolving fund. There's no basis for it. There's absolutely no basis. It's like a penalty we have to pay. In addition to that, probably even creating some more work down there, because now they drop it off in a spot. Well, I've gone down there in the past, not since this fee's been put in place, but I've gone, and you just, if where you dump your trash is not full, you jump it in, the people bring it down, dump it in there. I don't know if that was inefficient, but that's the way it was done in the past. So I wish you'd revisit that. I don't know how many times I have to ask. But I wish you would revisit it. And one other piece to that fee is in Park and Recreation. There's a fee, and they were in here earlier this year, and they introduced a new fee schedule. But there should be something that fee is paying for. It shouldn't be just an additional tax on people who go down there and use that facility. And it's very close to the cost of the people that are paid to work down there. There's $21,000 for the employees, somewhere around $21,000. And the fees amounted to, I think in last year's, about $19,000. That fee that's being assessed down there should be used to pay the gatekeepers and the other people that work down there.
In a sense it is.
Yeah, but it's
Because
coming.
it goes into revenue, and that revenue reduces the tax rate,
Well,
or is used right up front, because that's what's submitted to the state with all of our other revenues, and that's subtracted from what we need to raise. So it's not a direct line, but in fact, it does go directly toward the taxes.
well, I get a little suspicious of concern about government and
Well, that being the way things are in Washington,
Well,
I just think you'd be
I think it
overwhelmed
ripples
with
down a little bit
conflict.
once in a while, unfortunately, but I don't have any way to determine that. An example would be the furniture. There's nothing preventing you from doubling that fee. Nothing. You'd have a public hearing, thank you, everybody doesn't want to do it, but you go ahead and do it. What's preventing you from doubling that? Absolutely nothing. But when it comes to the other things, whether it's LP tanks or whatever it happens, there's a check and balance here, because this is what it costs to dispose of the LP, and this is what we're getting in for revenue. Yeah, it makes sense. But when you start using it strictly as revenue without knowing what the cost associated with that is, I get a little concerned. I understand what you're saying, and I guess, in a really roundabout way it does, but there's really a lack of,
Yeah, I think that they're really quite different, in my mind, the fees at the park and the way and the bulk items that you're talking about. Oh, John, you kind of, did you want to get in and say something to this?
I've been against that since day one. Our former Director of Public Works and I, when I was manager of transfer, argued over that for probably 3 or 4 months. And he finally just came in here and said, well, we're gonna do it. And I've been dead set against it. I agree with Dick, it's almost double taxation.
Yeah,
and as you recall, about a couple of years or a year prior to that, he came in and requested that increase, and we were charging people to bring their mattresses in the box springs. I got a phone call wondering why I'm paying the same price for a box spring as a mattress, king-size mattress versus a regular-sized box spring. When it was first set up, it was this $1 amount, regardless of whether it was a mattress or a box spring. And it was told to us that, well, they wouldn't accept it at the wherever it gets hauled to. It wouldn't fit through the bin or something or other. And, the prior Public Works Director came in and said, no, that's not the case, and it was eliminated. But it came back again. And I think there was an intent to use that money for something else. The thing is, it's just not, it's a tax. It's an unfair tax. I wish you eliminate it. I mean, if there was a justification for do it, fine. If you can tell me what the costs are, then that's fine. But it's not directly reducing the taxes the way I look at it. It's a revenue, yeah, but it gets washed. It's revenue to increase salaries for the employees. Yeah, you can apply it directly to what the service is or what the cost for that service is. And I just like to see that connection. Thanks.
John, if you'd like to put that on the agenda in a future meeting for discussion. we can-
I would, because, his philosophy, the prior director, was it was taking up too much room in the trash trailer. Well, I'm sorry, but you take a box spring and a mattress and put 30,000 pounds of pressure against it, it doesn't take up much room. It just doesn't.
We'll put it on the agenda as an item.
Because I always believed that it was costing as much.
Well, I was going along with again, we'll put it on the agenda. Though I didn't get it tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else who's here for public comment? Okay, we don't have any other budget items to bring up tonight. Okay, we're gonna go to the ACO position discussion, but we need a little non-public before we get into that. So I move that we go into non-public. I guess it would be under A and C.
Well,
Is there
A is
people-
compensation and C is reputation.
Okay,
You're
Just
talking
C.
about, I
So
think you're
it'd
just
be
talking
just
about
C.
C.
Just see.
just C. Is there a second?
Second?
John?
Yes,
Dan?
Yep.
Me? Yes.
Yes. Yep.